Hi, I'm Sandra Oberlies.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, where we left off, we had just finished working on configuration H, and now we are ready to start configuring the configuration advanced H. There was a section for dual Z steppers that I don't know that we really need to mess with anymore. But in case you see it, we do have two Z stepper motors. However, we only have one Z stepper driver. All right, so it's controlling both motors in unison. So if you see something about controlling two stepper motors or two stepper drivers, you're gonna not configure that because we do not have two drivers. All right, we're gonna go down in this file down to 1369, or not as much in this one to configure, although there are some interesting things if you want to take a look at them when you've got time. Don't spend class time doing it if you are short of getting your work done. Okay, 1369, define status message scrolling. This is useful if we have status messages that are too long. This way we'll be able to see what they are because it'll scroll across. Also, since we are using the U8G library, we can use the options on line 1381. Again, I am not going to mess with these right now. All right, there's if, either, SD support, LCD, all of that. These are options that are there. We're going to leave all of these things like can show remaining time, is turned on, all of that. We're going to leave that turned off so that we don't have as much to worry about as far as verifying and compiling our software. But once it's all working, like the LCD progress bars, things like that, if they're turned off, we might want to come back and turn those on if we wanted to see a progress bar as the printer was going. But for right now, we're going to leave them all turned off. Line 1407 is enabling SD support, and we have enabled that in the configuration H. So we've got these other options. And if we notice line 1435, this is connected with another one. This one says SD card rather recent first. That means that the files that we see on the SD card when we go to print are going to be the ones on top are going to be the ones that we most recently, by file date, put on that card. Okay? That's useful because generally the ones that we did at the beginning of our print run, like earlier, months earlier, or sometimes years earlier, will fall down to the bottom of the list because we're probably not printing with those a lot. And the ones that we just sliced and put on the card will show up at the top of the list. The alternative for that is to put it in alphabetic order, and that is at line 1506, but you need to pick one or the other. You cannot have them both. I'm going to leave it as rather recent first, because I think that works out fairly well, and I can still find the older files if I need to. If you find that this is bothersome for you and you always want it in alphabetical order, you can change that, comment this one out, and go down to 1506 and adjust that one. Okay, but before we get to 1506, we're going to go to 1431, and we need to make sure that the SD finished released command. Right now, M84 will release all of the steppers, all right? However, we want the Z stepper to be left alone, all right? We don't want that to move. We want our bed to stay where it is so it doesn't drop in case there's some other issues. So we're going to change this from M84 to M84 XYE. So we're leaving the Z out, but it's going to be the X axis, the Y axis, and the extruder those stepper motors will all be released when the printer is done, but the Z, the bed, will stay where it is, or actually the up and down in our printer, the hot end. We want it to stay where it is instead of moving. 1460, power loss recovery. This is something that's enabled by default in the Ender printers. However, I've never found that it worked very well, and so if the power goes out and you come back in and it turns itself back on, you're going to get this request to, do you want to resume? And since it's not working very well, and if everything has cooled off, it's probably going to crash if you try and do it that way. It's best to just leave that commented out, also because we don't want to have too many troubleshooting things to deal with later. We're going to leave it as it is right now. And then we go to line 1506. That one was the SD card sorting by alphabet instead of by recent first. Again, I'm going to leave this commented out, but later you can always come back and change that if you need to. We're going to go down to 1529. And just like it was nice for the status messages to scroll, we're going to scroll along file names. I found it hard sometimes when I had long file names. If I couldn't see the end, sometimes that's where I had like update 1, update 2. And so I needed to be able to see which file name was which. And so I needed to scroll that. So we're going to turn that to scroll. 1629, we need to define our SD card connection. We do have an SD card. It is in our LCD screen. So we're going to set this to LCD. The other options might be onboard or custom cable, but ours is in our LCD screen. So we're going to define it and set it as LCD. We're going to go to line 1945. Baby stepping is something that should already be turned on. I believe that we set that in configuration H, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. It's actually a really good thing to have, but for right now, I want to just leave it turned off so that we don't have any configuration problems. And if we find we can't baby step when we need to, we will go back in and turn this feature on and then reload our software. Okay, so once we've got that, once we're finished enabling all of this, that was the last one we needed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for all of the configuration. And now it's time to start our compile and verifying before we can upload it to the printer. I'll see you on the next video.